Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Cooks by Carrie. If you're new here, I'm Carrie, and for today's Foodie Friday video, I'm sharing how to make this delicious strawberry shortcake from the New York Times cooking section. This recipe is so refreshing and it is a perfect dessert for summer. So without further ado, let's get into the video. For this recipe, you are going to need some strawberries. The first step is to cut them up, but I already did that just to save some time for this video. You're also going to need sugar, flour, a small amount of sugar separated from the big amount, salt, a lot of baking powder, butter, whipping cream, and vanilla extract. So, like I said, in the recipe for step one, it says to, cut in half or slice, depending on their size, kind of get them to a medium small. And then what I'm showing here is it said to mix some berries with a half a cup of sugar. You can add more if you need to, but personally I just did half a cup because berries are already sweet on their own, so I didn't think they needed that much sugar. And then with that smaller bowl of strawberries that I have, which is about a quarter or so of the total amount of strawberries, I crushed them all up. Now it says to gently crush. I kind of crushed them a lot to get a lot of juices out of them. And this is just for the final result when we assemble the strawberry shortcake. You're gonna want like some syrupy, juicy bits, but also some full strawberries. And with the bigger bowl of strawberries with the sugar, you want to cover it in plastic wrap and leave it for about half an hour to develop. Now, for me, I just left it the whole time that I was preparing all the other things in this recipe, which did take me more than 30 minutes. And I do want to mention, so this recipe says that it only takes about 45 minutes. However, in my opinion, I found it maybe took 2 hours. Now, New York Times recipes are generally, they can be pretty difficult. And I had some wonky things going on with my oven, as usual. If my longtime viewers know that my oven is always kind of crazy. But I would just say make sure you have a lot of time to make this recipe because you should probably assume it will take you more than 45 minutes, at least for the first time. So now in a mixing bowl, I'm sifting together my flour, small amount of sugar, salt, and baking powder. Now it does get a teeny bit messy for me just because like the I put a lot of flour in at once. I'd say do it in chunks. Don't try and sift it all at the same time because it will get a little messy. And at this point, make sure you have preheated your oven to 450 degrees. That is a pretty high temperature for this, but I think it's because this is like a sweet biscuit. That's kind of what the base is. So even though it's called a shortcake, it's a biscuit base, not like a cake layer. I think it might be considered a cake layer, but you're getting something a little bit more flaky. So it's going to be different than what your normal temperature for an oven would be for a cake. So yeah, you just want to sift all the stuff and that's it for this step. Now to my flour mixture, I am going to add in the butter. This is not all of the butter. The recipe calls for 1 1/4 cup butter, and this is just 3/4 of a cup of butter. And mine got really soft because it's summer, so it's a little hot where I live. And so my kitchen was already hot, and then I had my oven at a really high degree, so my butter got nice and soft by the time I was ready to use it. If your butter is not this soft, there's a couple methods you can do to get it softer. I know that some people like to take a cup of like a microwave safe cup, fill it full with water, microwave it in the microwave for like 2 minutes or a long time, and then place a wrap stick of butter under the cup and then leave it for 10 minutes and then the butter gets soft. That's one method. Or what I like to do is kind of chop up my butter, put it in the microwave, and microwave it at intervals between 8 and 15 seconds. Sometimes I like to do 8 seconds. I know it's kind of random, just like a very small amount, and then you can just do it multiple times if you need to. But just watch to make sure it doesn't melt completely. So yeah, hopefully those tips help if you need to soften butter quickly. I know that's definitely me a bunch of times. What I'll end up doing. So yeah, I'm just cutting in the butter and using a fork. You will see me go in eventually with my hands. I promise my hands are clean, so I wash them every time before I bake, of course. And so I felt comfortable just going with my hands because I felt it was just going to be way easier to get all of the butter chunks mixed in because I didn't want to just have like a random clump of butter just lying in there because I thought that that would not be very tasty or delicious. Now that I have the butter all mixed in, it is time to add in the cream. So I'm adding 1 1/4 cup of cream. And again, I'm going with my hands just because, they were already clean and then, they were already dirty from mixing before. And I felt this method was a very good method because it allowed everything to get mixed in. So while it's a little gross to watch, I'm sorry. But I do think that this technique is very helpful. Now it just says mix to soft dough. So obviously in the recipe they don't say to go in with your hands, but I felt like they're one of the best tools you have in your kitchen. So I felt that they were really good at getting this dough prepared. Also, I'd say that while like the prep for this recipe doesn't take that long and like making the biscuit dough didn't take that long, for me you'll see in a little bit that the biscuit baking did kind of take me a while, and that's what kind of made this recipe go slower than the time allotted in the on the actual recipe. So that's just something to note. Now it is time to knead this dough. So I'm placing some flour on just my counter. The recipe said to use a lightly floured pastry board, but I felt like my counter was just going to be the best way to do it. Now you do want to make sure that you have a large space available just because like there is a lot of dough in this recipe. Um we'll get to my thoughts on the servings amount and everything in a little bit, but there is a lot of dough and there's just like a lot of little like crumbs, I guess you could call, from the dough, so you just want like a lot of room to roll it out. Now you're only supposed to knead for about a minute. I believe I did do it a little bit longer, but that is just because I had a lot of these, as you can see. I had a lot of these little bits that I had to incorporate into like the big blob of dough. So basically, what I ended up doing is kind of like getting kind of like the dough flat, and then I would add in some of the crumbs. I'm calling them crumbs. They're basically, I don't know if that's correct terminology, but I feel like you guys can understand what I mean by that. I'm just adding them in, and then I'm just folding the dough over and then incorporating like that, and then just kind of mushing it up to make sure that everything is all incorporated. I feel like I use that word a lot. But yeah, that is it for this step. Alrighty, so now it is time to roll the biscuits out and cut them. So I'm using my same rolling pin from my blueberry pie video. This time I have it fitted to the largest setting, which was 3/8 of an inch. Now it said to roll out a half an inch. 3/8 of an inch is, an eighth of an inch smaller than that. So it worked out just fine. You want the biscuits to be pretty thick. You can always just use a measuring tape too if you don't have like a rolling pin like this. So yeah, you just want to do that. And here's what I'm gonna go into what I think about the servings. Now this recipe said it yield 4 generous servings. Now how a traditional strawberry shortcake is, it has biscuit, some whipped cream, some strawberry mixture, biscuit, whipped cream, strawberry mixture, I believe. Or I think sometimes it's also just um biscuit, berries, biscuit, whipped cream, berries. So sometimes there's not whipped cream on the first layer like for this recipe, but whatever, it's pretty similar. So it's traditionally has 2 biscuits. Now, these biscuits were so big that I felt that a 1 layer strawberry shortcake was plenty for my whole family who was eating them. So I was actually able to make, I believe, 10 full biscuits out of this, and then um 2 mini biscuits from this. So it said to use a 3-inch biscuit cutter. Now I don't have a biscuit cutter that's 3 inches, and maybe some of you guys don't have one at home too. So I'm showing this technique that I love to use for biscuits, which is just taking you can use a glass, a mug, a little bowl, anything like that, and using that to roll out the biscuits. You just have to be careful that you don't get it too stuck in there, but it works pretty well. Okay, as I was saying, I made 10 big biscuits, which would make, in this recipe's mind and, traditional strawberry shortcakes, 5 strawberry shortcakes, and then I'm just counting the mini one as like the bonus. But I feel like it's actually more like 10 servings with, if you just did one layer of biscuit, whipped cream, berries. I think that that is like the perfect serving size just because these biscuits are so big. You could alternatively make smaller biscuits and do kind of like mini biscuit, strawberries, mini biscuit, toppings. But I mean, you can do whatever you want, obviously. I'm just giving some insight on, there was everyone in my family couldn't finish it. We all had leftovers. So I'd say that if you're making this for a party or really whatever, maybe try one layer of biscuits or strawberry shortcakes. Yeah, so anyway, I'm just, as you've seen in this video as I was talking, I just, if once I finished the dough and I had to re-roll it out, I kind of just like smushed it with my hands and then rolled it back into a ball and rolled it out. Now I know you're not really supposed to handle dough too much, so this might not have been the best idea, but I mean my biscuits turned out fine in the end. They were actually more than fine. They were very delicious. So I think any way you can to just kind of quickly re-roll them is perfectly fine. And once you have them rolled out, we'll get to the next step. Now I'm going to go ahead and use some of the butter to grease a baking sheet. This butter is also at room temperature. Alternatively, you could use melted butter. Now, if you don't have any extra butter, you could, well, you're going to need a little later on, so hopefully you have some extra butter. But alternatively, you could just use a cooking spray, canola spray, anything like that, just to grease up the pan. Okay, so now you want to fully melt some butter, which you can see I have to the left. And now you want to place your biscuits a little bit far apart. They don't have to be quite so far apart as I was putting them, but they are going to like kind of puff up a little bit, so you don't want them too close together. And what you actually do is you put the first layer of biscuit, you put some butter, and then you put the second layer of biscuit on top. Now, I believe the purpose of this was so that when the biscuits bake, once they're done, you'll have two that are perfect in size so that when you put them later, they're more uniform. They look really good stacked up. That's what I think this purpose was. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out which ones look best with each other, match them all up, and get all the biscuits on the tray. Now it is time to pop these biscuits into the oven. It says to bake them at 450 for about 10 to 15 minutes. So that's what I did. I set my timer and I watched them very carefully to make sure they didn't get burnt on the top. You want to take them out when they're golden brown. Alrighty guys, before I continue with this video, please subscribe, hit that thumbs up, comment down below what you'd like to see next, and share this video with a friend. Also, turn that notification bell on so you get notified when I post a new video. I have a goal of 100 subscribers, and we're really close to 30, which is about a third of the way there. So if you could subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Alrighty guys, let me continue with this video. So after about 15 minutes, I pulled the biscuits out. I was so happy with how they looked. I was like, oh my god, did my oven actually do right by me today? Did they actually cook properly? They look so good. So I pulled them out and I was ready to perform the next step, which was to separate them and then apply some butter on all of them. But when I opened them up, they were raw inside. Yeah, they were raw. So my oven had actually failed me once again. I know I talk about my oven a lot, but maybe some of you guys are in the same situation. So what I ended up doing was putting them back in the oven with a piece of tin foil covering them so they wouldn't get any more golden on the top. Now be careful because like my pan was hot, so I had to do this very lightly. And then I cooked them for about, I'm going to be honest, I can't exactly remember the time, but I believe it was like 15 minutes. Checked on them, pulled the biscuits apart, put the less cooked side facing down so they could cook a little more, and then cooked them for like 15 minutes at a way lower temperature, maybe like even 350. So in total, they probably cooked for like at this point, over 30 minutes. Yeah, that's crazy because the cooking time was 10 to 15. Now, if this happens to you guys, I'd like to know in the comments down below or if it was just me and my weird oven situation. But regardless, the biscuits turned out great anyway. I'm just wanting to let you guys know this so that you know to reserve extra time for this recipe because you might run into a little bit of trouble like I did. After all that time, I was finally done cooking the biscuits. As you can see, they got golden brown on the tops and the bottoms. So I flipped them all, paired them up again, and brushed them with butter. Now you can see that my butter has solidified a little bit, but since the biscuits were so warm, it was okay that my butter was kind of only at room temperature and wasn't completely melted. This is all for this step. Before, the last step is to assemble the whole mixture. Now time for the assembly. You want to assemble your strawberry shortcakes right before you eat them. So here's how it works. You want to put berries on the first layer with a little bit of the juice. Then, like I said, put the next biscuit on, whipped cream, top with berries, and that's all. Now I didn't show step 7, or sorry, not step 7. I didn't show step 6, which was to beat remaining cream until it thickens, add vanilla, and beat again, which is basically making whipped cream. But since I did a whipped cream video for the Monday video and I had some left over, I just topped mine with that. So if you want to learn how to make whipped cream, you can refer to that video. I'll link it in the description down below and put a card here. But I just felt like it would be kind of redundant if I showed you how to make it. So I just topped it with the whipped cream I'd already made. Now overall, I'd give these strawberry shortcakes a 10 out of 10. I think if you make one layer only, you put a good amount of cream and a good amount of strawberries on them, they would be perfect. It is such a good summer dessert. It's perfect for really anything. A barbecue, eating outside, eating indoors, really anything. It's great for a party. It's great for a big crowd, anything. If you like these tips and you made this recipe and, my tips helped you, let me know in the comments down below. And that's it for today's video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, comment down below, turn that notification bell on, and do all of this on YouTube things. And follow my Instagram at Cooks by Carrie if you haven't already, because I post lots of fun photos of the food I cook, and behind the scenes things, updates, all of that good stuff. Stay tuned for next week's videos. They may be revolving key lime pie, so if you're into that type of stuff, look out. And that's it. I'll see you on Monday for a new video. Bye, guys.